Hey, everybody. So good to see you. We've got Kevin and Jena from RPH Ally and soon to be Jaron also from RPH Ally. And we're so excited to have him as a guest. We were just talking backstage a little bit about the pressures of being the individual on the spotlight and the expert in the room. And we've got one today, folks. I know that he may be a little bit squeamish about being that expert. We're excited to have him. If you don't know anything about CPAs, this is your guy. If you know everything about CPAs, this is your guy. So stay tuned. We'll talk to you in a sec. All right, Jena. So last second, we have a good friend that comes in and joins us and is able to knock it out of the park. So Jena, I'm going to have you kind of talk a little bit about what you and Jaron have been doing together, and then have Jaron introduce himself to the audience. I don't think anybody needs to be introduced to Jaron. Everybody knows him, but I'd love to hear the background.
Yeah, he's a pharmacy celeb. So when I started my business, I felt like I had little to no guidance on, how do you, yes, we talk about collaborative practice agreements, but what does one look like? When you're actually drafting one up, and then also just like the rules and regs of each collaborative practice in a state are drastically different. So when I love LinkedIn because I was like, does anyone have like a sample collaborative practice agreement? What does this look like? What are the things that we outline that we can and can't do? Like I had no answers. And so somebody nicely referred me to Jaron, was like, he's your man. Oddly enough, this was the first one that I was able or looking to implement was in a long-term care facility. And that is where Jaron has implemented, I think, 39 and counting. I feel like a very novice when I have a full 2 that have been implemented. But it was really intimidating for me from both a legal perspective, a state regs perspective, and then like actually drafting it. What does this look like? So he was super gracious. I thought there's no way this man's going to answer or like get back to me. He not only got back to me, he jumped on a call right away with me. We are both in this amazing coalition from the American Society of Consultant Pharmacists. And with that, we are we're going to, and we are, I'm not going to say we're trying to, because we are changing the way that long-term care and other state regulated facilities are providing clinical quality care to their patients. And so historically, where we've only been in a space of really making sure the state rules and regs are compliant, we want to up it, and we want to disrupt the industry, as Jaron's awesome label says. But truly, you have in these facilities access to the sickest patients. And so we are not okay with it just being the minimum rules and regs and us just being, state compliance officers. We really want to, step up, and we really want this to be quality care provided through a collaborative practice agreement. So we are practicing at the top of our license, collaborating with nurses and physicians, families and caregivers. And then in turn, what that provides is the best quality care for patients. So I'm going to turn it over to Jaron because he is the absolute guru and master of all things collaborative practice. But he was my hidden gem and amazing resources with his graciousness, and just he's so humble and he was so willing to give me his time. So thank you, Jaron.
Thanks, Jena. And, contrary to everything Jena just said, I'm just a regular guy. So, I'm going to quote the Joker and say that I'm just a dog chasing a car. I don't even know what I'd do if I ever caught it. So I'm just like, I just see opportunities and I jump on them. That's all I do. But so just to give a little bit of background, I was started as a consultant pharmacist in nursing homes 10 years ago. I immediately got good rapport with my nursing homes. I got good results. And despite that, I would show up to these nursing homes and they'd be disappointed, which I was very confused by. So I would talk to them and I thought, we were friends. You'd look forward to my visits. But they were like, and they said, yeah, we love you, Jaron. but we don't like the giant stack of paperwork you always give us. And that I'm honestly like, that was the turning point in my career, that when they said that, it made me really think, what am I doing that's actually adding value to their patients, to their residents, to their services? And I thought long and hard about it. It really bugged me for a couple of months until I listened to a podcast and they just mentioned the phrase collaborative practice agreement. And ever since then, my career has been a totally different trajectory. The moment I heard that phrase, I just thought, like, why has no one done this in nursing homes yet? There's so much value for it. And right now, I mean, historically, it's been done in hospitals, and that's it, where physicians are always present. In nursing homes, they're rarely present, maybe at best, usually once a week. If you have one more than that, that's great, but it's not very common to see them more than 3 to 4 hours per week. And the ability to delegate to a pharmacist and have them handle medication management for them is a huge, huge lift off their back. So, most people, work in the outpatient setting or community pharmacy. So I'll kind of touch on that mostly, but just to give you some background, I mean, it really depends on where you live, what kind of restrictions are on your collaborative practice. I'm very fortunate because I live in Utah, where there are literally no restrictions. They just define what it is. So in Utah, it's defined as when one or more prescribers delegate their prescriptive authority to one or more pharmacists. So that's all it is. As long as you stay within those parameters, you can make a collaborative practice agreement. And I attended a state board meeting where they talked about it, and they made it very clear. They wanted physicians in the driver's seat. So they didn't want to put restrictions on it because they wanted the restrictions to be driven by the physicians. If they're comfortable delegating something, allow them to delegate it. If they are not, then they don't have to. It's entirely up to them and how they want to structure it. So just to clarify, a lot of people get mixed up between what is a collaborative practice and what is a business agreement. Yeah. The collaborative practice is when a physician delegates their prescriptive power. All right. But a business agreement, if you work for a physician doing incident to services, which we can touch on, but if you're doing that, then that's a business agreement where they delegate their ability to bill for their time, which we are not able to do. So most people don't know this is something that's available to us, which is really unfortunate, because 9 years ago, the American Academy of Family Physicians clarified directly with CMS, wrote them a letter and said, hey, we looked at the incident to rules, and we want to know if we can delegate our follow-up visits to a pharmacist based on these regulations. And they confirmed yes. And so this is a stepping stone. I think, historically, for years now, we've just been begging and pleading for provider status. And in reality, we're not doing anything to prove that we deserve provider status. We need stepping stones. It's way too much of a lift to ask CMS and our healthcare system in general to jump from where we are right now to granting 350,000 pharmacists provider status overnight. Mm-hmm. It's way too much of an ask. Mm-hmm. And if you ask me, it's kind of a leap from where we are. So we need stepping stones. We need items that get us to our ultimate objective to prove our value. And you know what? Honestly, if we get provider status today, how many of us believe that insurance companies will pay us what we're worth? When you look at MTM reimbursement, it's pretty sad. We've never proven what we're worth. And as a result, we don't get paid our value. So we need items like this where we team up with a physician, we work under their wing side by side. And it's funny, 30 to 25 years ago when the PharmD became the standard, everyone was talking about how, this is it. We're going to be working side by side with physicians. They'll do the diagnosing and we'll do the medication management and prescribing. Mm-hmm. That has yet to happen 2 decades later. This is literally us working side by side, working for them, and helping them manage their chronically ill patients, doing exactly the things that we've been proven beneficial for. So I just wanted to emphasize that, when we have an opportunity like this, we need more pharmacists to jump on and make it happen. And this will put, and if all goes well, I will be able, and also I forgot to mention, I'm the leader of the Collaborative Coalition of Physicians and Pharmacists, because we're trying to lighten the restrictions that are on Incident to services. And when we stand before CMS, which is going to happen in the next few months, we've built an incredible case to present to them that the Incident to rules are not only vastly and systemically misinterpreted, but they're also too restrictive to implement in a nursing home. And as a result, if we get this to where nursing homes have lighter restrictions for Incident to services, this will quadruple the number of pharmacists providing clinical services in nursing facilities. And it's funny, and even for Jena, working in just the pediatrics in a nursing facility, the frequent and most common problem in a nursing facility is polypharmacy, overprescribing. We start a med, something like they got an antibiotic, so we put them on a probiotic. The antibiotic always gets a stop date. The probiotic rarely gets a stop date, and it will stay there for years. And unfortunately, historically, consultant pharmacists haven't really done much to curb that. And I think part of the problem is for years and years, we've had consultant pharmacists that work for the dispensing pharmacy, and there's no incentive to get rid of unnecessary meds. And that's just my opinion. That being said, there's lots of great consultants who work for a dispensing pharmacy and do get rid of a lot of meds. So in a nutshell, collaborative practice agreements are our ticket to prove our value. And I have an attorney who helps me with this coalition, and Jena knows her well, and she's amazing. She's had discussions with CMS about the current regulations and what we're trying to work on, and one of them was collaborative practice agreements. And CMS, I'm going to be very frank here, they are actually quite surprised and disappointed that pharmacists have done next to nothing with the collaborative practice agreement laws in place. They're disappointed. And once again, if we aren't going to take that initiative, CMS has no incentive to give us more crumbs to lead us to our ultimate objective.
I've got to ask you this, Jaron. Why?
Yeah.
What do you think is the roadblock for us? Because we have seen so many times, Jaron, that in Washington State, for example, which you know well, and I think you and I talked about before, the insurance commissioner said, I am shocked how you have provider status now, not federal provider status, but state provider status. And as a profession, I am not seeing virtually any billing coming through.
Yeah.
For pharmacists. I mean, there are some exceptions, and there's some facilities that are doing incredible things, leveraging E&M claims, et cetera, but that is not the majority, Jaron. And why do you think that is, and how do we correct that?
That is a very good question. I think there's a few factors that contribute. First of all, the collaborative practice laws vary by state, and that, I think, complicates things. And I think in school, we're just not taught to realize that it's available. We're just taught to think that, this is just an institutional thing. You go to a hospital and they have a collaborative practice. This is not something I can implement and build in my own practice. And so I think that's one of the obstacles. And I had another one. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah,
so
Jaron,
go ahead.
I think too, just like you're saying, coming from my viewpoint of coming from a hospital, then going into like the community space, for me, I was like, oh my God, our lack of autonomy is astonishing, because I was in the hospital where we had, through all these collaborative practices, policies, procedures, we could really they diagnosed the providers, and then we took the rest. And so when I came out, I was appalled by just our lack of autonomy when I started in the surrounding facilities, it took me months to get access as a provider to collaborate with them under the collaborative practice agreement. And they were really hard stuck that we were supposed to be similar or have the same status as LPNs. And that's not degrading any profession. That's just saying our education level is similar to that of physicians. So we should be able to practice at a similar level. And just like you're saying, because I was giving so many recommendations, these recommendations, the physician said, we can't do anything with them because we don't have the bandwidth to make 10 to 15 recommendations on each patient. So with that, with the collaborative practice agreement in place, I was able to make the changes that we agreed upon, but then also all they would do was write addendum my note and write agree. And I could do anything from weaning medications to, like you're saying, a lot of it, it's deprescribing. We have a huge issue with anticholinergics, just like the geriatrics with pediatric patients that cause constipation, urinary retention, getting those off the profile, Reglan and erythromycin. We love everyone to have these inappropriate agents for GI motility. But what it allowed me to do is actually take them off in a timely fashion and then practice at the top of my license. And I'll forever thank you for being that answer, because I could not believe, it was almost like I was shell shocked when I came out of the hospital going into these various facilities, what we had done with our license out here. There's no better way to say it.
Yeah, because I mean, everybody knows we rarely practice at the top of our license. We're taught to do all these incredible things, and then we're placed in a market where none of those, opportunities are really available. Mm-hmm. And, Kevin, I think the other item, and thanks for that, Jenna, that was spot on. So another thing is, if you go to Ohio or some of those other states where they have provider status, a couple of things. First of all, another problem I have is, and Nevada got a really good rate, but historically speaking, since we once again have not proven our value, even if we get provider status, we're going to get a very low percentage, because once again, we need building blocks in place before we get it.
Right.
And a big problem we have right now is, once again, education. So we're not taught in pharmacy school how to bill for our time. Mm-hmm. It is a massive amount of information and billing codes and requirements and documentation that goes into it. And we're just not taught any of it. Yeah. And so for that reason, I've also reached out to my pharmacy school where I went at Midwestern, and I've started discussions with them to start offering electives to get more pharmacy students aware of this. Because the biggest problem we have right now is we graduate in a mountain of debt, and then we don't know how to bill for our time. So we have to research it and find people who will charge us even more to learn this stuff and implement it after we graduate. So
it's a secret. It's a big secret.
Yeah, it is. And there is so much to know before you can bill for your time. So even when we're granted it, we have so many pharmacists that don't know what to do with it, and we're probably not going to get paid a reasonable rate to do it. So it's not really worth all the extra effort that goes into figuring it all out. So there's several factors that contribute to it. But when you look at
you guys, Jaron, the one thing I was going to say, in working with medical students, that is a major part of their training.
Yeah.
And being under the wings of a physician. Literally, I remember during my residency that sometimes what was happening is a medical student is going and seeing patients, coming back into a room. I'm sitting on one side going over clinical issues with them. The physician is sitting on the other side going over billing issues, how to increase those billing numbers, how to document appropriately, how to change those codes so they can do everything necessary. And then behind the loop, they've got an entire billing team that's going through all of their documentation and telling them, this is what you need to do differently to make sure this fits.
Right.
I mean, that is literally baked into the training for years for them to be able to grapple with. And so I love that you're starting in the academic kind of situation there, Jaron. And I think that's a huge jump. The CPA piece for me is almost the in-between, right? I mean, us being able to say, here's that gap to fill. What's the thought from you, Jaron, on we don't have to go and do all of our own billing. We don't have to go and do all the Instant 2 even. Like, we can live in a CPA space and be able to charge on a per chart, a per whatever basis in general. Is that the direction you'd like to see us go first, Jaron, with those stepping stones? I'd love to hear more
Absolutely.
about that. Okay.
Yeah, and because I mean, learning how to bill for your time is a massive lift, whereas a collaborative practice agreement is just something you can build relatively easily
Yeah.
and get it up and running, and at least get that in there and build off of that. And so I absolutely, that's the initial stone and the first step we should all take. And one thing to keep in mind is, I forgot to mention that with a collaborative practice agreement, there's two aspects to it. And I didn't know this till I started making one, but there's the initial aspect is the agreement. It's a legally binding agreement. You have to define what the consultant pharmacist is, what needs to take place for this agreement to be valid. What makes it invalid? Where's the parameters? Yada yada. And then after that, what are your protocols? What items is the physician delegating to the pharmacist? So those are just items that you need to know if you're going to build one. And
Huge.
I mean, I'm working with Jena to get this out to more people, so that and I want to give a very big thank you to Jena, because I've been operating kind of in obscurity for a very long time, just because I'm so busy building everything, and I've wanted to get out there and get more people aware, and get more people on board, and get more people educated. I just haven't had time on top of everything else I'm doing, but Jena has taken that initiative and pulled me along with her to some of the stuff like this. So I thank you, Jena, very much. This is awesome. So.
Thank you so much, sincerely. And I'll message Jaron at these odd hours at night. I'm a work sleeper, and I'm like, Jaron, tomorrow, and he's like, okay. So yeah. he's going along for my crazy pony show. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Entrepreneurs never sleep, so
For the work, seriously. I'm like, oh my God, I blame my 11-month-old, but I think it's just me, because half the time it's like 2 o'clock, I'm the one awake and she's sleeping. So I'm like, it's just me. But with that, we did create, and we're partnering with RPH Ally, the clinical pharmacist consultant guide to launching. It's a very reasonable price, low program, with the goal of providing everything from step 1 to step 10 or 20 of starting a consultant business. And really what that looks like, doing not your traditional, you're not opening your traditional pharmacy where you actually, like, so many people ask if I have handicap capability. I'm like, yeah, because it's virtual. I don't need I don't need anything. This is a virtual business. So the importance of, it's a very different perspective than your traditional brick and mortar pharmacy, and I felt like there wasn't a lot of go-to resources for me when I was doing this. So that was the intention of partnering with people. You're never going to be the expert of everything, that's for sure. But what I learned in my entrepreneurial journey starting this is that if I know the experts, then I can go to those people and have them as resources for things that are not my strengths. And so I knew nothing about collaborative practice agreements. I just knew they would open up my autonomy. And so Jaron being the expert, it was like finding a gem, because without him, like he was saying, I could have been in the numerous facilities, but none of my recommendations would have been taken. And so, like, what would the point of me been really practicing there if I'm documenting on the chart and there's no changes to be made? So check that out, and we'll have the link and everything to our online course with RPH Ally.
Yeah.
No, I'm looking forward to going through that with you, Jaron. I think the one thing I was hoping to get a little bit from you before we say goodbye to everybody is that coalition. So I talked with Chad the other day, and that I have that geriatric background and heart, Jaron. So I just always am feeling for, how do we push this further? I think Jena introduced me to the long-term care pediatric space, makes it even more robust and exciting. But when it comes to that coalition, how we can amplify things and help, and what the pharmacy community can do to make sure this coalition gets all the teeth that they need to be able to be behind it and actually do something with it, Jaron and Jena, like we want them to. What are some next steps for the pharmacy world to kind of pay attention to what the coalition is doing and trying to be successful? I mean, I will grab Chad, whatever you're sending from ASCP, buddy, I will send it out and amplify it. Same with Jaron. But any steps that you would like the audience to take before we say goodbye?
That's a very good question. So here's what's been happening. I've been waiting like several weeks to kind of work with the attorney and with ASCP to start sending out emails to start inviting general membership to the coalition and to give us more support, because I mean, we're a small coalition. We're not well funded by any means, and we do need more support. And so I think, I keep forgetting that, I'm the leader of the coalition and I can just make these decisions rather than waiting for people. So right now on this very, very podcast, I'm going to make an executive decision and just say, okay, general membership is open. And if you want to contribute, we would much appreciate it. Send me a message, an email, and then I can, we can have a brief discussion or phone call if you want. Just kind of talk about what kind of funds we need and what you'd be willing to contribute, because it's negotiable and every bit helps. So go ahead and send me an email to, which one do I want to go to? Send it to Jaron.Stout at CRX Consulting, as in Collaborative Pharmacy Consulting, .onmicrosoft.com. I'm not big enough to have my own server yet, so it's got to be on Microsoft.com. So please email me, and let's start getting more support. We're going to be going to DC here in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be speaking in several ASCP regional meetings, and I'm also going to be say what?
Say it right. You're going on tour.
I've always wanted to be a rap star, so this is my opportunity to go on tour and talk in all these ASCP regional meetings. So, it's not rock and roll lifestyle, but close, very close, obviously. So, so yes, general membership is. I'm going to start opening it, and I can have invoices sent out, and last of all, we're going to be going to CMS. Hopefully this summer. So the more resources and funds we have to bring in the people that we need to bring into DC to make that a successful trip would be much appreciated. So and once again, this
be a roadie for you, Jaron.
Say what?
I'm always happy to be a roadie for you. I'll more than happily put everything together from the, all your extra guitars, etc. So you just let me know how I can help, buddy, with anything that you're doing in that space. And if anything's going on that we can kind of push out, you just let us know. We definitely have you there. Everybody, thank you so much, Jaron, for being here with us. Jenna, like always, a pleasure.
Thank you,
and we'll talk to everybody really soon. If you haven't joined the Perfecting Peds channel on RPH Ally, please do so. We'll hopefully see Jaron much more often inside of RPH Ally and be doing lots of fun things together, because he's just way too much of a disruptor in the space not to be able to do stuff with. And so let's keep the collaborations going and get those CPAs up and running, folks, and we'll talk sometime soon. Thanks, everybody.
Sounds great. Thank you.
You.